Welcome to the top 5 legends you should be playing if you want to climb ranked and gain more RP. Whether you're solo queuing and want to find someone impactful to play, or if you're trying to build a stacked team to gain RP quickly, this is the video for you. We'll be going over why each legend is impactful, and I'm going to do my best to give tips on how to maximize your value with each legend so that you can gain that sweet RP. All the gameplay that you're going to see in this video will be from pubs. I could not be bothered to go solo masters ranked and rip my hair out at my randoms for the sake of this video. Mad respect to the solo queuers out there though. With all that being said, let's get started. All right, coming in at number 5, we have Pathfinder. Now, I'll admit, Pathfinder isn't all that good of a character all around. His hitbox is huge and he doesn't really have a passive, and the zipline isn't necessarily the best movement utility in the game. However, what allows him to be such a good legend, and the main reason I'm putting him in the top 5, is his grapple. Pathfinder's grapple is great for a couple of reasons, the first of which being the way the current weapon meta is shifting. With the Peacekeeper being on the ground and with it absolutely dominating at close range, that synergizes very well with the grapple, because with Pathfinder, you can very easily close distance on a target that may be isolated or out of position, and you can put yourself right in the most effective range of the Peacekeeper or any other shotgun, that being point blank. And the idea of you and your team getting a crack and just grappling in, full sending it, and properly capitalizing on that advantage before they may get a bat off or heal, or before that advantage goes away, however that may happen, is absolutely ridiculous. You know, just being able to fully commit onto a target right away is awesome, and is the reason why I value the grapple so much. Another reason why the grapple is so good is because it provides vertical mobility, and vertical mobility in general is very busted to the point where it's almost broken, but I'll elaborate on that a little bit later in the video. All right, so coming in at number 4, we have Bloodhound. Now, Bloodhound can seem like a relatively simple and straightforward character. Real quick, let's go over how you can get value out of this legend to gain more RP. I'll start with the passive. Bloodhound's passive is very useful for chasing down kills, chasing solos, or just finding teams to fight, and kind of seeing where they're rotating and what they might be doing. Because in the current rank system, you know, it's obviously very KP oriented, and so using that passive to track people down and to initiate fights or just to find them in general is very useful. Then on top of that, the value that you get from scan is insane. The ability to know where people are, what characters they're playing, and potentially even what weapons they're running. A pretty underrated way to use the scan is actually to see whether or not someone has a Kraber on their back late game. I know that I've been able to do that before, where I've scanned someone and I've seen a giant long weapon on their back. I'm like, oh, that person has a Kraber. And I was able to properly play around it and not get headshot and relay that information to my teammates and whatnot. Then of course we have the ultimate, which is insane utility in fights. It helps you win them a lot more easily with that 30% increased movement speed and the ability to scan off cooldown. I know that whenever I pop Bloodhound ult, I feel practically invincible, and I know that I kind of have that placebo effect and I win fights a lot more easily whenever I am in ult. A couple of tips that I would give for Bloodhound to get a little bit more value out of them whenever you're trying to climb the ranked ladder are just make sure that you're using scan as a way to confirm or elaborate on information that you already have. Don't rely on it to have game sense. Don't rely on it to have information. Try to go out of your way to gain information on where people are first, or what they may be doing, and then use your scan after instead of just blindly scanning, because blindly scanning not only forces you to have to wait for that long cooldown, but it can also give a really large audio visual cue that other teams can see or other players can see and capitalize off of, because they might see that you scan and then take an angle that you then can't cover, and you might lose the fight as a result. So just be conservative with your scan. Don't waste it. It's obviously a very easy and very straightforward tool to use, but again, just be careful. All right, coming in at number 3, we have Valkyrie. Now, Valkyrie is an insanely versatile and useful legend. Regardless of the fact that she's been nerfed a little bit, she still is insanely useful, and that mainly comes from her passive. What makes Valkyrie's passive so good is that, much like Pathfinder's, it is exclusive vertical mobility. And what I mean by exclusive vertical mobility is that, unlike say a Horizon Lift, only Valkyrie has access to her mobility. It allows for a lot of crazy individual playmaking, and allows for Valkyrie players to get angles that other people may have a lot of trouble getting to. Now, I mentioned that vertical mobility was busted a little bit earlier in the video, and I'll kind of elaborate on that here. The reason why vertical mobility is so busted is because it unlocks a dimension of movement that other legends are not capable of. For example, if I use Octane Stim to run from point A to point B on a horizontal basis, I can run from point A to point B on any other legend. The difference between me and the Octane is that I'm going to do it more slowly. Whereas with a Valkyrie, if I jump off of high ground and go to low ground, I have the ability to fly right back up to that high ground. Whereas the legend that I might be fighting, has to take the very predictable routes, of climbing or taking the stairs or using a zip line. And vertical mobility basically just takes all of the traditional ways that you're supposed to move around buildings and terrain and kind of just throws them out the window and allows you to have so much more freedom. And that's kind of why I put Valkyrie at number 3. A couple tips that I would give for Valkyrie is obviously not to use her passive and not to fly in open line of sight of other people. It's very easy to get beamed. I would make sure to time your swings with her tactical. Make sure that you're shooting off the missiles and calling swings with your team to take advantage of the sensitivity, slow, and the stun. I've seen Sweet do this a lot in ALGS. Another thing to note is that on the mini-map, you can actually, whenever you use your Skyward Dive, whenever you use your ultimate, look straight at the mini-map. The scans on the enemy players are actually going to register there much faster than they are on your on the rest of your screen. It's really cool. I'd try it out for yourself. All right, coming in at number 2, we have Horizon. Horizon is very good for a multitude of reasons, and I'll go ahead and kind of go over them on the basis of all of her different abilities. Horizon's passive is actually really cool. Not only does it make your movement a lot more fluid, but if you're jumping off of some form of high ground, not having that fall stun allows you the opportunity to even the playing field on targets that you may be dropping on. Because what a lot of people do when they see someone fall off of high ground is, they'll try to do their best to vertically track them out of the air. But what most people are going to wait for is for you to hit the ground and whenever you have that fall stun. And because Horizon doesn't have that fall stun, you can pair it with movement like redirects or tap strafes or whatever right after you hit the ground to really level the playing field and minimize the amount of damage that you're taking as your opponent is sitting there waiting for you to take that fall stun that they're used to everyone else taking. Horizon's tactical is really good for blocking off doorways. There obviously is a trick. There's, counterplay to the whole, Horizon tactical door trick, but it still is really useful for at least stalling legends for a bit or stalling, enemy players for a bit. It is obviously vertical mobility. It does break the rules of how you're traditionally supposed to move around terrain in the game. And it also synergizes really well with her ultimate, which can suck people through walls and allow you to, punish people behind cover that may be a little bit out of position from their teammates. But another really surprising, level of value that you can get from Horizon's ultimate is just throwing it down right on top of you and healing inside of it. I don't think, unless, obviously they're using a digital threat or they maybe have a, Bloodhound and ultimate, they'll be able to see you very easily as you're popping a battery in the middle of a Horizon ult. Overall though, Horizon is a really well-rounded character with abilities that synergize very well with each other, as well as synergize very well with other players. And even though we did kind of get hit with a bug recently, bug/nerf/ whatever, where the accuracy in her Q got decreased by a lot, Horizon is still an exceptionally valuable character, and I don't really want people losing sight of just how good she is, even in the midst of having to deal with maybe that bug or nerf or whatever. All right, and coming in at number 1, we have Seer. Seer is a ridiculously powerful and impactful legend and is something that I would honestly call RP insurance just because of how good he is. But let's go over exactly how you can get the most value out of his kit to climb. First, his passive is really good at clearing buildings and clearing choke points and looking for solos and whatnot. And it's just overall a really good informational tool to inform the decisions that you have made or will make. And there's honestly no passive like it in the game. There's almost no consequence for using the heartbeat sensor. There's no cooldown. There's a minimum movement penalty. One tip that I would give while using it though is to look up at your mini-map whenever you activate it. Instead of looking at that small ring that's around the center of your screen, instead look up at your mini-map whenever you're just kind of rotating around and trying to clear things, because the yellow aspect of the UI, the yellow aspect of the passive is going to register a lot more quickly there than it will on the center of your screen. Seer's Tactical is also ridiculously good, but not for the reason that you might think. Seer's Tactical is most useful not because of the scan or the health reveal that you're going to get on a target, even though that scan does, last forever. The value that you're going to get from Seer's Tactical is actually the momentum preservation in fights. If you get a crack or if you get a knock, you have the ability to preserve that momentum and, cancel that res or cancel that heal in a fight. And so my tip for that ability would be to not use it so wastefully and not to entry with it, but instead to be a little bit more calculated with how you scan or how you cancel with it. And instead of viewing it as a scan ability, view it more as a denial ability, because that is what's going to net you the most amount of value in fights. Seer's ultimate is also insane. The constant uninterrupted wall hacks within that small radius can be used both offensively and defensively. Don't be afraid to eat ult excels to have access to this ultimate all the time, and don't be afraid to continually use it. The cooldown isn't actually as long as you might think, but don't be afraid to use it both offensively and defensively. Again, if you're pushing a building, you can use it to kind of see what angles are safe to come take and kind of see where they're grouping up or where they might be separating themselves. And if you're getting pushed and you're holding a building, or if you're holding a defensive position, it can be really good to know who to peek first, or to kind of know, if somebody is maybe charging ahead a little bit too quickly. All right, and that is going to conclude my top 5 legends for climbing ranked. If you had a legend that you wanted to be on this list or that you think should have been on this list, be sure to let me know in the comments, which legend should I have replaced, and why is your legend better, or at least a better fit for the list. If you found any of the content in this video informative, educational, or maybe even entertaining, do consider leaving a like. That would mean a lot. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe.